Hello and welcome to the Minds of the Frontline Podcast. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of your hosts. I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. My co-host today is Mike Mattern, also a firefighter, paramedic, EMS instructor, and peer support team leader. Today we are joined by Dr. Robert Dunne and Damon Gorelick from the Detroit East Medical Control Authority, or DEMCA. Dr. Dunne is an emergency medicine and EMS physician based in Detroit. He serves as the medical director for DEMCA and the Detroit Fire Department. His work focuses on developing EMS systems, providing clinical oversight, and training current and future EMS physicians. Damon Gorelick is the executive director for the Detroit East MCA. He manages the daily operations of the MCA, working with EMS agencies, dispatch centers, hospitals, and public health partners. Damon and Rob are here with us today because Michigan's frontline community is facing a challenge that affects everyone in uniform: mental and behavioral health. While each discipline has resources and peer support teams, one overlooked opportunity for connection and coordination is our medical control authorities. In Michigan, the EMS system is organized through more than 60 MCAs across the state. Each MCA oversees EMS agencies in its region, develops protocols, coordinates medical direction, and works closely with hospitals, dispatch centers, and public health. Even if you are not in EMS, your agency still operates within the systems the MCA helps to shape. MCAs are one of the few structures that naturally connect all 5 frontline disciplines. And that is why this conversation matters. MCAs already connect the systems we all work within, placing them in a strong position to help facilitate mental and behavioral health resources to responders and their families across an entire region. They can support access to programs like FST5, assist in coordinating peer support and CISM responses to large-scale events, and enhance the overall network of available wellness resources in their area. In this episode, Rob and Damon help us understand how MCAs work, why they matter far beyond EMS, and how they can play a key role in building a more connected mental and behavioral health support system for Michigan's frontline community. Minds on the Frontline is presented by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 offers 24/7 mental health and crisis support for Michigan's first responders and their families. If you or someone else you know needs help, call 1-833-34-STRONG or visit fst5.org to learn more and explore our free training options for Michigan's frontline agencies. Wayne State University administers FST5 with grant funding from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Together, we're dedicated to strengthening the health, resilience, and well-being of Michigan's frontline community. Please follow us on social media and enjoy the show. Hi, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Dunne, Damon, welcome to the show. Dr. Dunne, kick us off. Who are you? What do you do and where do you do it?
I'm Robert Dunne. I'm an emergency medicine and EMS physician in Detroit. I'm the medical director for the Detroit East Medical Control Authority, medical director for the city of Detroit.
Right on. And you've been involved with EMS for quite a while. You're raising some EMS fellow docs and expanding EMS in Michigan in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I first got exposed to EMS as a student, an undergrad student a million years ago in Crystal Falls, Michigan. Summer program at the hospital and got to hang out with the volunteer ambulance service in West Iron County, and was very excited about that. Went into emergency medicine years later and stayed involved in EMS.
Because you are a person from out of state. You are from New York.
I am. I grew up in Rochester, New York.
Yeah, and then you found yourself out in Michigan. You stayed here.
That's right, because of the sunshine.
Really?
Yeah, Rochester's like the cloudiest place in the U.S.
Wow. So if they would have sent you to Florida, you'd have been really happy.
Well, right, yeah. But I literally didn't own a pair of sunglasses till I came to Michigan because I didn't need them. I was like, wow, it is so bright here.
I don't think anyone's ever said that.
That's the first time I've heard that, yeah.
Okay, but those people haven't been to Rochester. I mean, literally, it's the cloudiest place. It has more days of rain than Seattle, and it's quite cold in the winter and gets sometimes 100 inches of snow or more. So,
well, for the many people out there that actually know you, I think that gives a little more insight into you.
There you go.
How about you, Damon?
I am Damon Gorelick. I am a licensed paramedic and an IC, and I am the Executive Director for the Detroit East Medical Control Authority.
Right on. What does that an executive director do for a medical control authority?
Since I'm the only employee, I do everything.
Well, let's get into what that everything is. Guys, what is a medical control authority and what does it do?
So the medical control authorities are the source of medical oversight for EMS agencies in Michigan. Every state does this a little differently. No state does it as differently as Michigan does. All the other states require some kind of agency level medical director and then often have other structures. But here in Michigan, I look at it as the state kind of handed off a lot of administrative functions for taking care of EMS to the hospitals. They drew a map and they said, hey, if you're getting patients from EMS agencies in this map, guess what? You as these hospitals need to create the protocols, provide the medical oversight, elect a medical director, and basically kind of run that system. You as an EMS agency, your ability to operate in that spot on the map takes a signature from that medical control authority. Most of them are counties. Some of them are a bunch of counties together. Our county's divided into because it's a very populous county. That's kind of where the oversight for EMS happens.
Now, would it be correct to say that all these medical control authorities have a boundary and all of the hospitals within that boundary, sometimes it's a piece of a county, sometimes it's a county or multiple counties that kind of come together, and the hospitals within that regional area make the rules for EMS essentially by following the state laws?
Pretty much. That is correct.
Now, obviously, MCAs really speak to EMS and those protocols and rules they carry out to participate with hospitals getting to the right patients, to the right care that they need. But how does an MCA serve as like a hub or an intersection for the other four frontline, that 911 dispatch, police, fire, corrections even?
I mean, one of the obvious ways is we do have some PSO departments, public safety officers, like Grosse Pointe Shores.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, that'd be like a part EMS, part fire, part police, or some combination of police and.
And that's 100% how they are. So they are police, fire, and EMS there.
Yeah.
So they are a member of our MCA, so that is how we intersect with them. A lot of the police officers do respond to medical calls now when they are called in with the different Narcan programs, AEDs, and Stop the Bleed. We do go out there and help train officers on all those. So there is a lot of crossover work.
Right.
And really the MCA is like the clearinghouse for all out-of-hospital care, regardless of who's providing it. And you touched on 911. Medical control authorities started adopting dispatch protocols many years ago. Dispatch happens in kind of a gray area in Michigan that we have a very old 911 law, and we don't mandate the use of emergency medical dispatch, the prioritization and pre-arrival instructions and all that. But the medical control authorities will often mandate that in protocol. And because of that, it's helped to drive change at local 911 centers, because those local 911 centers sometimes are operated by the EMS agencies. Sometimes they're operated by a county sheriff. Sometimes they're part of a large, urban public safety like in Detroit. And having those protocols really helps our providers and our patients out there. So the agencies are like, hey, the medical control authority says you got to do this emergency medical dispatch. And because of that, that's why many places have adopted it. And of course, a lot has to happen behind the scenes with medical control authorities working with these dispatch centers. But boy, we've made a lot of progress, particularly in the metro area, where you now have places where they used to just answer the phone.
Right.
Yep, we're sending an ambulance. See you later.
Just like MCAs have brought, in Michigan, have brought those hospitals to the table, it has brought the dispatchers directly to the table, because who's calling to get us there? It's 911 dispatch. We need that central nervous system to activate us.
When we talk about all these groups and how they work within the MCA, all of them face challenges at their jobs. What effect do you believe that has on not only their mental health as the responder, but their families at home and even their performance at work?
It has a huge impact. You're working long shifts, you're working holidays, you're probably spending more time at work than you are with your family. So it just becomes that more and more challenging when you're dealing with a very small segment of the population. Not all 70-year-olds are in nursing homes, not all have had strokes, not all need the assistance that we see every day. Just watching that every day kind of skews our outlook on life, thinking that this is going to be my end result. And it also provides challenges too, especially if you're dealing with pediatrics. I had a couple rough pediatric calls, and you do bring it home where you don't even realize you're putting up different barriers between your loved ones and everybody else. And what we do find is everyone goes through it together, but everyone goes through it differently. I mean, police do arrive on those scenes, so there is going to impact them a lot differently probably than the medical professionals and vice versa. We do try and come together through CISM and different stuff to get everyone to talk about their experiences and try and make it a little bit easier so when they do go home that they're not necessarily bringing their work home with them, but it's impossible not to.
And those shared experiences, you think of the patient that came to the hospital. Our hospital providers are often going through exactly the same issues, right? They're seeing that patient, EMS had that patient for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe with some success, but then it's a long stay in the emergency department. Maybe the patient ends up in the ICU and has a long course with ultimately maybe a very bad outcome. But even a patient that has a good outcome that went through a lot of traumatic injury or serious illness has an effect. And, we've done a lot of disservice over the years to our hospital and our pre-hospital providers by not really acknowledging this and kind of putting a face on it.
I would say within the last 5 years, the change has been huge. You talked about more CISM coming in and
Yes.
talking about it, the peer support. Are you seeing those same types of teams within the hospital systems as we're seeing outside in the first responder communities?
No way. We're seeing better teams, better peer support, better outreach resources in the pre-hospital community than in the hospital. Part of it is, for good and bad, we've always acknowledged the pre-hospital has this family feel to it. And sometimes that's bad because you're a dysfunctional family and you're not hanging out with each other. You're not talking about what's going on. But on the other hand, once places started to say, hey, let's put a peer review team, people came out of the woodwork to do peer support teams and do outreach and provide wellness activities. And it was a bit easier, I think. If you have leadership in, police, fire, corrections, EMS that is supportive of this, boy, we're doing it.
Let's kind of look at that MCA as a hub for wellness. The MCAs have been a hub for change for 911 dispatch to standardize that across the state. It's helped correctional facilities and law enforcement with engaging more in the medical side of accessing patient care for those people. How do you see Michigan's MCA system providing another avenue to connect all first responders and their families to mental health resources we're talking about to complement programs such as FST5?
I think people need to remember is that the MCAs fall under the public health code. And that is what we did leverage here in order to help build on that, to find out what resources they had, which led us into the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network and also the Zero Suicide Council. So those are resources we were able to pull in and be kind of, like you said, the hub that we can then give that information out to our first responders.
Give us a little more background on that, because as an MCA, this sounds like a great idea to reach out to your public health, your county, your system public health, why you did what you did and how maybe others can take the lead on something like it.
It was just a natural fit because, again, we fit underneath the public health code. Part of our goals of reducing, cardiovascular injury, strokes and all that. That is also their goal. So going on different fairs with them and health outreach is awesome. And from there, that can expand into mental health resources as well.
Building on what Damon's saying, so the MCA is the only place where all the agencies come together and are in front of folks and in front of public health, and we've got support and connection with law enforcement and emergency management. So it's a natural place to be a hub for resources. So when working with the various community mental health in Wayne County, that's the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, but also they work with a ton of different community-based groups like Frontline Strong, like various substance use disorder treatment programs like Face Addiction Now or SHAR, Sobriety House. I mean, a ton of things in our state, and every state really, are done by non-governmental organizations. And having one kind of clearinghouse for that information is a great job for the MCA. Plus, the MCA has a lot of credibility across all the disciplines you mentioned before with law enforcement and everything else. People tend to come to the MCA when they have questions or they need training or they have a community group that needs training. They come to the MCA. So people are thinking about it as a clearinghouse. It should be a clearinghouse for behavioral health and, substance use disorder and support for everybody who's out there.
Yeah, I wanted to really tease this stuff out through this conversation to say, man, people talk about MCAs as just a place to come up with protocols for EMS. And it's man, it connects all the pieces so nicely because of what they have to prepare for and interface with, that it only makes sense if you need to access all providers, why not add to the list of what a MCA can do for you? FST5's number, website, other groups like yours, suicide lines, everything can go through those MCAs because it'll reach out to more and more of our providers in the state. And that's kind of the point, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So the basic rules are just the bare minimum that an MCA needs to do. Yeah, so it needs to do all those things. But what we've seen around the state is that MCAs that are really progressive and interested in kind of expanding that use those connections to build something that does a lot more. But the sky's the limit, right? I mean, the idea is to build on those relationships to do the best for the people that you're serving, your patients, your providers, and everybody in that medical control authority, that line on the map.
We have a robust MCA in this area. So you're talking to somebody who they don't necessarily have that. What's kind of the first step that they need to take to make those connections that we have here to start building on all of those resources?
I think the first step would be really get involved in your public health.
Okay.
And also, too, I would get involved with your region, because that is where you do get a little bit more of homeland security and emergency management involved. And those are awesome ways to get into law enforcement, if you're looking to bridge those or enhance those relationships.
I think another piece of that is to try to find out what resources are in your community. I constantly learn and relearn. It is about resources that I didn't know existed, that are doing cool stuff. We've had a lot of focus on substance use disorder and community-based naloxone programs, but a big focus of what we've done through our MCA. And when we, the learning curve of every new organization, it was amazing, wow, you guys are doing this is cool. You guys are doing this. And almost working on kind of getting that catalog. So start by reaching out to public health, look at other community-based organizations that are out there in your community that maybe you've never talked to, and sit down and talk to them, invite them to an MCA meeting to talk for 5 minutes about what they do so people get exposed to them.
I love the fact finding out what you have, because a lot of times I know when we go out, even on the peer support side, we don't realize what resources our neighbors have. And once you find them out, you go, oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be huge for us to use. Unless you get out there and start networking and talking to people, you don't find these things out,
And that opens the door to offer those mental health resources or connect to those resources to your other providers is the key there. Another one, Mike, I want to throw this out there. Another one MCAs could do is build into their mass casualty incidents. And unfortunately, we had a really big one this weekend up in Grand Lake, Michigan. Yeah. And one of the things that I could foresee happening in the future is MCAs building into their responses a CISM team or debrief team in the protocol, essentially.
I'm telling you, that would be a game changer in the state of Michigan. And it's not just the state of Michigan, it's across the country.
Right.
The things that we've seen with, not just here in Michigan, the mental health almost comes as a secondary type thought. And we understand that operationally, chiefs and everybody else has to run that scene. They have an active scene, right? But I think if we can start building into our mass casualty incidents just a offshoot of, we have logistics, we have operations, we have all these things in the ICS. If we can build in a mental health portion,
right.
If you have that as part of your initial response and you have one person who's that coordinator who just coordinates that response, I think you're going to have a lot better outcomes, because a lot of times as a secondary thought, a lot of these responders aren't getting the resources that they need when they need it.
And we already have the unified command structure, which speaks to all 5 of these types of agencies.
Yes.
We already have a system, and what really ties it all together to me are those EMS-driven protocols that actually drive those actions of who you call, when you call, how you call. And I feel like it would lend itself to any MCA to go, we should probably add on the list of people to respond, peer support teams.
One of the things I think there is that the real opportunity there is to create something with a partner that's MCA-wide, because if an individual agency has a peer support team, which is more common in the larger agencies, but if you're in a county that has more than 30 agencies and only a handful of them are big enough to even have thought about having a peer support team, if you're going to put it in the protocol, right, that means it's something that's available to every agency. So that's where you really need to find a partner, whether it's through community mental health, whether it's through non-governmental organizations, to find somebody that is then a dispatchable partner.
Yes. Right, and I think
for all the agencies in that MCA.
Damon's pointing out, when you open up those relationships, you end up finding out what you didn't know, which was, I didn't even know these other teams existed who are more than willing to come and help anytime you want. We just need contact information.
Exactly.
Well,
a lot of this is just bringing together the resources in your own backyard.
And anytime when I was in public health and we're doing disaster preparedness, and one thing I feel that people always forget, the recovery plan begins as soon as the incident happens.
Right.
Yes.
Not after you leave. And part of the recovery plan is mental health.
Yes.
So that needs to start as soon as the incident happens. The plan for it or something needs to be interjected. And I feel that is where we usually do very weak on incidences.
A lot of the peer support teams talk, right? We network with each other, just like you're talking about networking. Some of the ideas that have come up is just have designated coordinators for each region. And their response is when, say, a large-scale incident happens, they go and they're part of the ICS, right? You have these coordinators who are already set up, ready to roll. They know the teams in their region. They know the resources in their region. They know the players in the region. They work with the IC, and they're the contact person, because a lot of times what we're seeing is the peer teams, the SISM teams are ready to roll. Like, the teams are mobilized, they're ready to go. The problem that we're seeing is the deployment of them. There's not a centralized person who's doing deployments, or there's not a, like, this is who we call as peer teams to go, we're like your dispatcher almost, right?
I love that idea, having a coordinator, because in essence, that's what kind of we are as an MCA. There was an incident in Detroit and we needed to get a SISM team out there. It would be a lot more efficient for me just to be able to reach out to one coordinator. Yep. Someone similar kind of to me or to the MCA is we're kind of regionally coordinating all the EMS, and we can fanning you out to that is just have a one-stop shop where I can call somebody and be like, hey, we had XYZ happen. Here's who you need to contact. Find out what they need.
Getting from here to there is some time, but I think the first step is for a local team that hasn't reached out or hasn't had a discussion with their MCA is to reach out to their MCA and say, this is a resource we have here that's available, this is how it works, and then start adding that into some of the resource documents that you have at the MCA that anyone can look at online. Add the concept into the protocol so that they know who to contact. If it's a single agency responded to like a bad house occupied dwelling fire, if they have their own team, they're probably going to be using that. But if they don't, they've got a regional resource to reach out to. And I think that's the real step. If you're out there with resources and you've never talked to your medical control authority, you should.
Absolutely. I think this is a great conversation to kind of leverage our MCAs from the ground up. If you're a provider and a part of any county, you can reach out to an MCA and access them, and MCAs the other way around to really connect care to the provider. So I appreciate you guys' time today.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no problem. Always nice to be here.
Thank you again to Dr. Dunne and Damon for joining us today. Before we close, we would like to leave you with a few key takeaways. Most first responders rarely think about their medical control authority unless they work in EMS, but MCAs are one of the most underused intersection points in Michigan's entire public safety system. MCAs can do more than oversee EMS protocols. They can act as a clearinghouse for the resources that keep first responders and their families healthy. MCAs can help share information about programs like FST5, coordinate peer support and SISM responses during large-scale events, and connect agencies with mental and behavioral health partners already serving their area. This matters because no issue right now affects all 5 frontline disciplines more than mental and behavioral health. Trauma, burnout, and family stress cross every badge and every uniform. And when support is fragmented, people fall through the cracks. But when resources are coordinated at an MCA-type level, entire regions get stronger. So here is the message we hope sticks with you today. If you are a peer support team member, a first responder, or an agency leader, contact your MCA. Find out what resources are available and how they can assist your team. If you represent an MCA, consider taking on this role more intentionally. You have the structure and the relationships to bring fire, EMS, police, dispatch, and corrections together around a shared mission of wellness. When groups like MCAs take the lead as a hub for mental and behavioral health support, responders will be able to meet their needs more quickly, families will feel more supported, and communities will benefit from healthier, stronger frontline personnel and their agencies.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.